Today I'm going to show you how to master SwiftUI scroll views. Let's say you have this view here. We've got this cool button. We've got these 4 colors here, and they're just random colors. I just created this little thing to show them, and it looks great. But what if we add more things? Let's say we wanted to add, say, 10 colors. Well, what's it doing? It's just pushing everything off the view. So that's not working for us. This is the perfect instance where we're like, hey, let's put this in a scroll view. So to do that, we simply say scroll view, and we wrap our view in it. Now, what a scroll view does is that it takes an axis, and by default, it is vertical. So vertical, and the axis is the axis upon which it scrolls. And as you can see now, it is just as wide as the items in our scroll view. And we can demonstrate this even better by putting a border on it. So here we see our red border. It is just as wide as the items in it, but it is the whole screen length tall because this is a growing view. So if we say, let's put 2 things in it, even though it's not filling up the entire scroll view or the entire view of the screen, the scroll view still pushes out for along the axis of which it scrolls. So if we change this to say horizontal, it'll push it out that way. Horizontally all the way across the screen. And when you do that, it doesn't matter how many items you have in it. We're going to add, say, 20 again. And it gives us room to scroll all the way down and see every item that we want to see. Hope you're finding this useful. If you are, please take a moment to like and subscribe. If we go back here, we change it to horizontal, we see that we have a problem. It scrolls horizontally, but it still fills up vertically. And now I can't scroll and see everything there. And that's because it's just expanding along the length of the subviews are pushing it. So if we wanted this to scroll horizontally, I would have to change that to an H stack. See, now we can scroll horizontally and see all of our stuff. And see how it expands enough even for like button before was a little bit smaller, but now it's expanding to accept the width of that button, as well as the width of all these other items. You might say, why are we using a scroll view instead of a list? Well, that's really an important developer question. You see, scroll views differ from lists in that lists, they utilize reusing the views. And so like, even though we have, say, these 20 different cards here, each one of them is instantiated when we create them inside a scroll view. Whereas if we use a list, there is view recycling being done. And so lists are going to be more efficient, where scroll views are less efficient. Next on the docket are the safe area insets. So let's say you have over here and you want to put something under which the scroll view can scroll. Well, you use the safe area insets. So you say, safe area inset, you can specify the edge, and here you have a spacing parameter. We'll talk about that. And then you add your message. And let's see what happens when we make it shorter. You see it only takes up the space that it requires. So if you want it to be wider, you could say, hey, I want it to fill the whole thing. And meanwhile, the scroll view itself has not expanded. And the spacing parameter, now it tells us how much spacing we want between this view that we've added down here and the scroll view itself. So if we say 100, see the scroll view is moved up to there, but the scrolling still goes under. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, it scrolls up and gives you some space there. By default, it is set to 0. And the edge is important because you can say to the bottom, you could say to the top, and then it scrolls under it on the top. Now you can say left and right or leading and trailing, but if you do that, you're probably going to want a horizontal scroll. Otherwise, it just kind of appends it to the front. So like if we say leading, it's here at the front, but our scrolling still goes up and down. And you can also add more of them. So here we have this one, and we could add another one, and we could say to this one's going to be the bottom. So there you go. You can scroll under, you can scroll on top, and that is how you add basically like a header or a footer for your scroll view. The next thing we're going to demo is disabling scrolling. So to do that, I put a toggle up here, and I've connected it to this state variable, scrolling enabled. And it's really quite simple. You just type in scroll disabled. And I'm going to say, well, if scroll enabled equals false, then we're going to disable it. So right now, moving up and down, it's working great. But if for some reason I want to disable it, boom, just toggle it off. You can set that in a button. You can set it in a toggle, however you want to do it. Maybe it's programmatic by if they complete some other action, and you just tie it into this little method here. Now I'm going to show you how we can scroll to anywhere we want to in our scroll view. So I've added these 3 buttons up here. Currently, they don't do anything. I want to be able to scroll to the top, to the bottom, to color 3, and to a random color. And you can see the buttons here in my safe area inset, and they are empty in their implementation. So the first thing we need to do is add the ScrollViewReader. So ScrollViewReader. Now what a ScrollViewReader gives us is a proxy that gives us the ability to scroll anywhere in the view. So you got to wrap in, right? Because this is a closure that is taking this completion block. And so now we have this proxy. So the proxy gives us access to the ability to scroll to something. So I say proxy dot scroll to. Now see, it's got this ID here. So I'm going to say scroll to ID 1 or 0 because I want to scroll to this guy. But what we need to do now is identify which view has that ID. And I'm just going to tie him for our sake to the index. You can tie him to anything you want, .id. And then I'm just going to add the index. So now if I scroll to the bottom and I want to scroll to the top, I just hit that because it says, hey, proxy, scroll to this guy there. And so to the bottom, I'm going to say proxy dot scroll to ID. Now in this case, I'm going to say it's going to be what, 19. So now if I scroll to bottom, boom, it scrolls all the way down to the bottom. And let's say I want to do a random. Okay, well, for that one, it's pretty easy. We just need to choose an ID at random. So I'm going to say let random equal int.random in. Here's a range. So I'm going to say 0 dot less than 20. And then I'm going to say proxy dot scroll to random. Okay. Now if I go to random, it jumps around. Now the interesting thing is that there's another variable. We can say where we want to. There's an anchor variable. And I could say I want it always at the top. So now if I hit random, so that went to 3. Now it's going to go to 13. And it's going to choose the view and try to put it at the top if possible. The last thing, if I want to do just a set one, of course, it's pretty easy. You're just going to put it in and say, I want to go to 3. And then you can scroll to exactly the 3. But if I want it at the bottom, let's scroll to 3 again. Notice it didn't move anywhere. So now if I scroll up out of the view and I hit scroll to 3, it's going to move it down as far as possible, trying to get to the bottom, but it can't. Let's say I changed it to, let's try something. Let's change it to 13 or 13. And I want it at the bottom. So boom, now it's at the bottom. Or if I say top, it's at the top, but you also have like center is an option. So if I scroll, now it's centered it on the screen. And those are the basic ways of scrolling to anywhere you want in your scroll view. You just need to make sure you identify the view to which you want to scroll and wrap your scroll view in a reader, and then tell the proxy where you want it to scroll to, which view given the ID, and use the anchor value to say, hey, this is where I'd like you to center it if that's possible. Now that you are a SwiftUI scroll view guru, what are you going to create with it? Are you going to share it with someone else? Let me know in the comments. Remember, all this code is in the description of the video, as well as links to some of the APIs that are used here. So find that, go off and explore.